Ahoy guys, and welcome to another giant showcase. 9 pages in total. Ars Nouveau can be quite overwhelming, but honestly, it's very easy to use. On your journey today, you will learn how to create your own spells, unlock more techniques, perform rituals, and tame magical creatures. Hope you enjoy. Everything is explained in your notebook, which is granted upon generating a new world. In case you've lost it, good job. It can be easily crafted again. It is indeed important, as some recipes won't show up in JEI. To start with your magic, you need firstly a spell book. This can be dyed so it suits the player's preference. This is the place where you create your spells and store them. In total, you can get 3 different magic spellbooks in survival, each of them more powerful. Upon holding your spellbook, press C and you will be welcomed by a spell page. On the left, one can see 3 pages. First, spells, where you will create all spells. The second, where you can change the color of your spells. And the third, which is for familiars. More about that later. Each spell you create needs a form. You start off with 3 basic forms, which determines how the spell is casted. Touch, which is casted when you interact with something. Self, which inflicts effects on yourself. And projectile, summons a projectile that has effects upon coming in contact with either a block or an entity. The other paragraph is effects. Up to 9 effects one spell can have. This determines what the spell does upon being activated. You start off with 2, Harm and Break. Harm cannot be stacked without a delay, more about that later. Break will destroy blocks with average hardness. At the bottom, you can as well rename your spell. Above that, you can see the progress bar of your spell, if you selected some effects and a form. To remove it, just click on it. On your right side, you can also scroll through your various spells. One book can hold up to 10 spells at once. If V is pressed, you can quick select spells. Press Z or X to quickly swap through the spells. You may have noticed the purple bar at the bottom when holding a spell book. This is your mana. Each spell needs mana in order to operate. It regenerates slowly by itself, but you can use external sources like armor or enchants to increase the ratio and or your max mana. For example, by upgrading your spellbook, you will have more mana. Depending how many effects the spell has, the more mana it consumes. Let's create a tutorial spell in case you are unsure how to do that. With beginning spells, we can create a spell that breaks blocks upon interacting with it. Choose Touch and then Break. You see them selected in the row at the bottom of the page. Rename the spell if wanted and click on Done. Now you are able to break blocks. Let's do another one. Select Projectiles and then Harm. Rename and select Done. Now you have a projectile that shoots out a harmful spell. The next recipes will need a new tree type called Archwood. It can be found rarely in any biome. There are 4 variants. To advance further, craft an imbuement chamber. This can transform lapis or amethyst into source gems, used in a lot of recipes. A dowsing rod can be crafted to find very easily budding amethyst. It also glows up any nearby magical creatures. The energy system is called Source in this mod. It's used to power various machines, which help you become a better magician. The basic way how to gather source is by an agronomic source link. This uses the growth of plants to create source, including normal crops or even saplings. Bone mealing them won't work. Plants with magical traits such as Archwood will create more source. More about magical generation later. The storage blocks you've seen on the left are source jars. They can store and provide source to machines. Source can either be picked up with a bucket or moved in the jar. The next step is to unlock more spells. This was updated just a few days ago, but I will explain both ways. Instead of using a machine, the new update needs you to use the scribe's table. More about it later in machines. Use your spellbook on it and select your desired spell. Each needs a bit of experience and some crafting ingredients. These can be either made in the enchanting apparatus or the imbuement chamber. More about crafting after I explained the old way. In the old version, you need firstly arcane stone made with source gem and any type of stone. Then craft a glyph press. This is your very first machine which requires source to operate. You firstly need magic clay, then a reagent for the spell. This is for every type different and will be covered specifically in the spells section. If enough source is provided nearby, it will then start the crafting process. More about it later in Glyphs. Crafting is also changed accordingly. Instead, you need to use an arrangement of a floating crafting table and surrounding pedestals. Up to 8 need to be provided with items around the enchanting apparatus. So here's a quick summary how to build it. At first, one will need the arcane core. On top of it, place the enchanting apparatus. Surround this with arcane pedestals in a 3-block radius. The amount depends on the recipe you want to craft, but the maximum is 8. Equip firstly the pedestal and then lastly the apparatus with the needed item, and the crafting will commence. This allows you to get various items from seeds to trinkets. Sometimes this process also needs source, by the way. The first seed you want to craft is the Mage Bloom. This allows you to get special fiber crafted into the Tier 1 Mage clothing. The first one is weaker than iron. To upgrade, combine 2 Mage Bloom fiber with Blaze powder. Out of Blaze fiber, one can craft the next outfit, which is equal to iron. The last upgrade requires Chorus fruits and Blaze fiber, creating the Archmage armor, a bit weaker than the right. Each upgrade provides a greater bonus of additional mana and quicker mana regen. The armor itself repairs slowly over time in exchange of mana. One is able to upgrade the spellbook as well, but the third one isn't craftable without a special boss. It will be covered in rituals. Archwood forests are rare biomes filled with archwood trees and filled with mythical creatures. This is currently disabled in 1.18. Commonly, you will find a new hostile called the Wilden. These are evil magic creatures found in 3 different variants. Hunters and stalkers can be found in almost every biome. The hunter will spawn in 2 hostile dogs and run right into you to throw you into the dogs. He drops his horn. Upon being approached, stalkers will shoot into the air, paragliding onto you. They drop their wings. Guardians can only be found in snowy biomes. They will beam at you, inflicting slowness. Another attack is their spikes, which shoot out when attacked. Basically a mutation between an ice bear and a guardian. In tigers and archwood forests, one can find sourceberry bushes. It can be used to create mana regeneration potions or processed into different food items, which also grants mana regen upon consumption. This needs a Tier 1 spellbook in order to function. Let's firstly start with the forms. All 3 starter glyphs are craftable. To assign a new glyph, hold it in your offhand and right-click with your spellbook. A glyph will be added to the default spellbook, meaning you only need it to unlock it once. Look up the specific reagent through the documentation under Tier 1 glyphs. The new form is called Underfoot. It does an action on the block underneath the player. Firstly, a short excursion to augments. Augments aren't available from the beginning. They are glyphs with golden border. They manipulate effects or forms and will always target the section left of it. In Tier 1, you are able to make 2 of those. Firstly, Sensitive. Combine it with the starter effect Break and it will break all blocks with shears. The second one is Amplify. This can increase the strength of the effect. For example, Harm can go from 2.5 hearts to 10 hearts if 8 Amplified is added. Now to the special effects. Aquatic will grant the water breathing effect. Bounce allows you to bounce after falling. Amplify this effect to bounce higher and faster. Conjure Mage block. This summons a temporary block. Amplify it to make it permanent. Conjure Mage light. This summons a permanent light. Amplify it to make it brighter. If casted on yourself, you receive night vision. If casted on an entity, it gets night vision and glowing. Craft opens the crafting GUI. Cut simulates shears on entities. Non-shearable will be damaged. Delay. Delays the time of an incoming effect. This allows harm to be stacked. Dispel removes all potion effects. If used on a witch with less than half health, it vanishes and gives in return a Wixie shard, used for crafting. More about it later. Evaporate deletes liquid in the area. Freeze freezes lava or water, or slow down targets. Use Amplify to completely stun enemies. Ignite sets blocks or entities on fire. Add the sensitive augment to prevent blocks from being set on fire. Interact interacts with entities or animals as if it is a player. Item pickup picks up items. Knockback can knock back enemies, also used with Amplify. Launch, either used as an attack to launch enemies or yourself, can be amplified. Leap pushes you into the direction you're looking. Can be amplified and also casted on other living beings, which is somehow really hilarious. Place block, well, it places blocks. Pull pulls entities to you, can be amplified. Redstone signal creates a redstone signal with strength 10, increase it with Amplify. Rune places a rune that will inflict the spell on the entity it touches. For example, a spell with rune and harm would damage the entity that walks over it. This is temporary. Snare stun entities, even prevents them from jumping. Speed grants speed effect, can be amplified. Summon steed summons saddled horses for a limited amount of time. After use, the caster will have the summoning sickness, preventing one to summon again. Summon wolves summon 2 wolves to fight at your side. After use, the caster will have the summoning sickness, preventing one to summon again. Toss will throw out the first item from your hotbar, can be even inserted into inventories. This needs a tier 2 spellbook in order to function. If you are still using an outdated version, recipes from this tier need a better magic clay to be crafted called Marvelous Clay. This section doesn't have any new forms. It does contain a lot of augments though. AoE increases the target radius. Examples: Evaporate, Item Pickup, Summon Steed. Accelerate increases the speed of projectiles. Dampen decreases the power of spells, also mana cost. Examples: Conjure Mage Light, Redstone Signal. Duration down reduces the duration of spells. As an example, Delay. Extend time extends the time that spell lasts for. Examples: Redstone Signal, Snare, Summon Steed. Extract Silk Touch on Break. Fortune, literally fortune for blocks, and loot for mob drops. Pierce, projectiles go through blocks and mobs for 1 extra additional time. Now to the effects. Access Ender Storage. Opens your Ender chest. Cold Snap. Mobs inflicted with slowness or are wet will be damaged. Surrounding mobs will be inflicted with slowness. Conjure Water. Places either water or extinguishes fire. Crush replaces stone with gravel, gravel with sand. View all recipes with JEI. Exchange can replace blocks with Silk Touch, or swap places with an entity. Explosion causes an explosion. Use Amplify for the damage. AoE for the radius. Fell harvest entire trees, mushrooms, cactus, or other vegetation. Amplify for higher block hardness. AoE for more blocks. Firework deploy a firework. Amplify for more stars. Extend time for higher flight duration. Flare. If an entity is on fire, it will burst out damage and set nearby enemies on fire. Best used with Ignite. Gravity makes targets fall rapidly, being inflicted twice the normal fall damage. Best used with Launch, extended with Amplify. Grow accelerates crop growth as if bone mealed. Heal will heal the target. Damages undead. Invisibility turns target invisible for a short time. Slowfall applies the slowfall effect. What a surprise! Smelt smelts blocks or items. AoE increases radius, amplify the block hardness. Wind Shear deals out damage when the target is in the air. Best used with Launch. Before moving on, we need to talk about rituals, as tier 3 glyphs require a tier 3 spellbook. Firstly, you need to craft a ritual brazier. This can also be used as decoration if you conjure a mage light on it. The color depends on your spell's color. To start a ritual, you need the corresponding tablet, source jars nearby if it needs energy, and any items if you want to augment it. After being done, right-click the brazier with an empty hand. The ritual of awakening needs nearby archwood trees. This will transform them into wheeled walkers that will defend its home. Set his home position with a Dominion's wand. Right-click firstly on the walker and then on the home position. They will heal over time. The tablet of burrowing will dig 4 holes up to bedrock. Tablet of Challenge summons an Illager raid. Add more emeralds to simulate the same hardness as if you have difficulty on hard, meaning more evokers. If it's already on hard, there won't be any additional effects. Tablet of Cloud Shaping. This allows you to change the weather. Without any augments, it will change it back to clear. With gunpowder, this will cause it to rain, with lapis to storm. Tablet of Disintegration. This one destroys every hostile in its vicinity and converts them into experience shards. For every mob, it needs to consume some source. Tablet of Fertility. Tries to breed every animal that's nearby. For every breeding process, it consumes a bit of source. Tablet of Flight. All nearby players will gain the flight effect, granting creative flight, and can be reapplied when entering the vicinity of the brazier. Each time the effect is given, it needs to consume source. Tablet of Moonfall. Sets time to night. Tablet of Overgrowth. Will bone meal nearby crops and grass, but needs source to operate. If augmented with a bone block, it will force baby animals to grow up. Tablet of Restoration. Heals nearby entities. Damages undead. Heals instantly zombie villagers. If the player was nearby the villager, it will even have a discount. All of this needs source to work. Tablet of Scrying. Allows you to X-ray through blocks. Add a manipulation essence, which can be made in an imbuement chamber, to increase the duration to 15 minutes. Honestly, this is very, very overpowered. Tablet of Sunrise. Sets time to day. Tablet of Warpig. Add a warp scroll with a specific location. Then it will warp all nearby mobs to that location. This needs a warp scroll, more about it in Trinkets. And lastly, the Tablet of Summon Wilden. Without any augments, it will just summon random Wilden. You need all 3 drops for every type: the Stalker's Wing, the Hunter's Horn, and the Guardian's Spike to be able to summon the Wilden Chimera. Don't do this near your base, he's very destructive. There are 3 phases to the boss battle, and if you don't pay enough attention, he can one-shot you even in the best armor. The first phase is quite easy. He just storms at you, looking at you very romantically, until he hits you like a school bully and runs away. The second one, he grows spikes, which he then will shoot out during his anger issue phases. He deals out enormous amount of damage, including as well slowness. The third one is the most annoying. Next to the spikes, he gains wings. This is the attack that actually killed me. He flings into the air. As soon as he does that, run. Just run. Don't look behind you. He will try to target you and then explode upon coming in contact with blocks. My recommendation is heal spells, launch combined with wind sneer, knockback and speed. After dying, he will drop a Wilden tribute. Now you are able to craft the very last spellbook. Congrats! Before continuing, let's finish all glyphs. Tier 3 needs respectively the last spellbook. And again, if you're using an outdated version, the new spells are crafted with an even more expensive clay, so-called mythical. Apart from that, everything works the same. Firstly, the new form, Orbit. Instead of 1, you will summon 3 different projectiles around you. These will remain until used. It will only hit entities, but you can as well make it sensitive to target blocks. The last augment is called Split. This causes projectiles to split into different ones. Now to the effects. Blink. If casted on oneself, it will teleport you in the direction you're looking. Use Amplify to get some really funny results. used with a warp scroll, entities can be teleported to a specific location. Fangs. Summons Evoker Fangs in the direction you're looking to. If used on yourself, it makes a protective circle around you. Glide. Lets you fly as if you were wearing an elytra. Hex. Not only does it increase damage if the target is poisoned, on fire, or affected by wither, but also decreases mana regen by half. Intangible. Temporarily turns blocks into air. Can be modified with, for example, Amplify for block hardness. Lightning. Summons a lightning bolt that inflicts the shocked effect. This increases further damage from lightning. This spell deals out more damage if the target is moist or has RF-powered items in its inventory. Linger. Creates an area of effect where your spells are casted. Summon Decoy. Summons a decoy of yourself that hostiles will attack. Summon Vex. Summons 3 Vex allies to protect you for a short period of time before they start dying. Finally, they are useful for something. Wither. Inflict the Wither effect. There are some amulets and special items such as the Warp Scroll that can help you throughout the journey being a wizard. Most of these are created with the Enchanting apparatus, which was already discussed at the beginning. Accessories are equipped in the Curious slot, which can be opened from your inventory. Firstly, the amulets, one for mana boost to increase your capacity and one for mana regen. Then belts. The belt of levitation lets you levitate when fall sneaking or jump sneaking. The belt of unstable gifts grants randomly short positive effects. They can vary in strength. Ring of Lesser and Ring of Greater Discount just reduces the cost of mana for each spell. The Focus of Summoning grants your summons more duration, strength, speed, and deals damage to enemies that try to kill them. If a spell is casted with the form Self or Orbit, that spell is also applied on nearby summons. The Jar of Light summons a light source that will follow the player. It can be dismissed at any time. The Jar of Voiding destroys items on pickup in exchange for a bit of mana. Turn it on and off with a sneak click. To add, remove an item from your whitelist, have the item in your offhand and click with your Voiding Jar. Must be in your hotbar to work. The Warp Scroll can be used to teleport you to a location, which is set with a shift click. Single-use item. The Enchanter's Shield will inflict oneself with mana regen upon blocking. It will repair itself slowly with mana. Firstly, the Enchanting apparatus, which is the way how to craft a lot of items. View all recipes in the documentation book. The next one was the Glyph Press, that allows you to create more spells, and the Imbuement Chamber, that transforms certain items into magical ones. Look up those in the documentation. This needs occasionally more items or even swords. Provide the machine with extra items via pedestals. This potion jar can store the same potion up to 100 times. Store the potion in an empty glass bowl or a crafted potion flask, made in an enchanting apparatus. This can hold up to 8 times the same potion. The potion melder can mix 2 different potions from adjacent potion jars to create one with different effects. It requires swords to operate. The scribe's table can be used to copy spells onto an empty spell book. Place your empty one on the table and sneak click with your written one. This can also be done with a parchment to only copy one specific selected spell. The second method is used for various tools like bows to apply different abilities on them. So let's start! The casting wand only accepts effects and augments, so your spell can only contain those without a different method. After deciding, follow the normal procedure to apply the spell. The same applies for an enchanter's bow. Decide for a spell that doesn't contain any methods. The bow works a little bit different though. It needs arrows in your inventory to shoot. If enough mana is present, it will inscribe the normal ones with the spell. If no mana is available, it's just a normal arrow. No arrows in your inventory? If your mana runs out, you won't be able to shoot anymore. The Enchanter's Mirror is a great way to apply self-spells with lower cost ratio. Again, create the spell without a form and then apply it with a parchment. Lastly, the Enchanter's Sword. Again, create a spell without any form and combine it with a parchment. All tools, if they get damaged, will repair themselves over time with mana. Honestly, I really love how you can create the tools of your dreams by just using your creativity. To finish this chapter, we got the Runic Chalk. You may remember the rune spell that would create temporary runes that would cast spells on entities that walk over them. Well, Runic Chalk can be used to create permanent runes. First, you create a spell with the Form Touch, then inscribe it onto a parchment. Use the chalk to create runes on the ground, then use the parchment to set the spell. Instead of breaking, it will be uncharged, which needs source nearby to reactivate again. As well, one can create a rune spell and make it permanent with a Runic Chalk. If Blink is used with a rune, then you can use an adjacent inventory with a warp scroll to get teleported without the warp scroll being consumed. Now that you know all different machines, let's take a quick trip how we can generate more energy. From how to start, you already encountered the agronomic source link that creates source from nearby crops. The next one is the alchemic source link. This consumes potions from adjacent potion jars. Bonus source is granted for each level, increased length, and different effects of the potion. Use the potion melders for best results. The mycelial source link consumes food items to create source. The best items are source berries. Pedestals can be used for automation. During this process, the source link will transform nearby grass to mycelium and grow mushrooms on them. The Vitalic source link either generates source from breeding animals or killing monsters. Additionally, baby animals provided with passive mana, which in exchange accelerates their growth. At last, we have the volcanic source link, which consumes burnable items. Again, be automated with pedestals. The best fuel is the archwood tree, which the most beneficial variant is called the blazing archwood. Nearby stone will be firstly converted into magma blocks and then into lava. In case the lava isn't covered, lava lilies will spawn on top of them. These are decorative blocks, craftable, that change their texture based on the liquid below. Before moving on, there are the so-called source relays, which allows the transportation to other source jars with a Dominion wand. To set where to send it to, first select the relay and then the goal location. Blocks don't block the path, but one relay can only reach up to 30 blocks distance to another one. To pull source from the jar, firstly select the jar, then the relay. Clear everything with sneak clicking. But this isn't everything. There are some special variants of the relay. The splitter supports multiple locations at once, where it will split evenly between all jars. The depositor will refill nearby jars it isn't linked to, if the primary jar is filled. And lastly, the warper. This one allows endless transportation between other warp relays, but a distance further than 30 blocks will consume some of the source for itself. Familiars. Familiars are pets that can aid you in various situations, but firstly you need to find them in the wild and bind them to you with a ritual. Here you can see all available summons. Firstly, let's start with the bookworm. With this example, I shall also explain how to bind a familiar to yourself. Firstly, craft the bookworm charm with the enchanting apparatus. View the recipe with JEI. Then right-click a lectern with the charm and it will summon a bookworm. Nearby, start the ritual with a tablet of binding. This will convert the living bookworm into a bound script. Right-click it to bind it to you. Open your spellbook and voila, summon your familiar. Now you know the process. After summoning, you are inflicted with the summoning sickness, preventing you to summon another familiar. The bookworm itself will reduce the cost of any spells and increase the damage by 1. The Drigme can be found throughout your world. Befriend them with a Wilden Horn, dropping it to its feet. In exchange, you will be granted a Drigme shard, allowing you to craft the Drigme charm. Use the charm on mossy cobblestone and follow the same procedure. Drigmes will increase earth spells damage by 2, as well diluting of mob drops. Under each glyph, there's written to which school it belongs to. The Starbuncle resembles a magic squirrel. Find a wild version within your world and give it a gold nugget. Craft the charm and summon with it a Starbuncle. Same procedure from here on. It will grant its master speed 2, and additionally you can feed it gold nuggets, which makes gold veins visible for a few moments. The next one is called Willy Sprig. Again, these spawn in the wild. To acquire its shards, grow a tree nearby. Use the charm on any small flower. Willy Sprigs reduce the cost of earth spells by 50% and grants more saturation from food items. The last familiar is the Wixie. Its shard is obtainable with the Dispel spell on a witch when it is under 50% health. Then use the charm on a cauldron. The Wixie will increase the length of any potion you consume and apply negative potion effects on enemies. All familiars can be unsummoned with the Dispel spell. Break the block the mob spawned with to get back your charm. Welcome to automation! Some mechanics and even mobs can be used to automate processes and create farms. So let's start. Firstly, spell turrets. These let you use spells with touch and projectile and let them be casted by a dispenser-like turret. The normal turret needs a redstone signal to operate, as will source to cast the spell. Inscribe your parchment with a compatible spell and set it on the turret. This can even use the spell place block or pick up items if an inventory is placed next to it. Blink can be used by turrets if a warp scroll is in an adjacent inventory. This won't consume the scroll. Firework will shoot a firework like a dispenser. You can upgrade the turret to an enchanted spell turret which consumes way less source. Another version is the timer turret. This one doesn't need redstone and is actually deactivated when receiving a signal. This one will count down a set timer to then cast the spell it was assigned. The timer can be increased with a right click and decreased with punching. Sneak to do it in 10-second intervals. You can lock it with a Dominion wand so you don't change it by mistake. Now to automated entities. Bookworms are like already encountered summoned with a craftable charm on a lectern. These small dragons can be dyed. The spell it casts can be inscribed via a parchment and then told the bookworm. This will cast on the surrounding blocks of the lectern. To cast a spell, it will need a source jar nearby. By default, it will only cast a spell if it has an effect. For example, it won't cast the spell Grow onto fully grown crops. Harvest will only work on trees and fully grown crops. This is called the restricted mode. Turn it off via a Dominion staff. Bookworms are also able to pick up blocks if an inventory is placed next to the lectern. This also applies on placing blocks, but you need to define the item by right-clicking it with the chosen item. You can specify the radius with a Dominion wand. After summoning the Drigmy, you can use the Hench to summon more. This peculiar mob will harvest drops and experience gems from nearby entities without harming them. The amount and efficiency depends on their happiness. The more entities are nearby, the higher the happiness. A bonus is granted if different types of entities are around its home, the Hench. The home is approximately a 10 blocks radius around it. After producing the drop, it will deposit them in an inventory nearby. To regain this ability, it needs to recharge with source. Starbunkles are used for item transportation and can be summoned by right-clicking the charm on the ground. Firstly, they are able to harvest fully grown source berries. To specify a storage block, firstly select the block, then the entity. But it can also be used for transferring items from one inventory to another. Works even with pedestals. One can make the Starbuncle prefer a certain block for paving. Naturally, they seek out grass paths blocks. Willy Sprigs can reproduce surrounding organic blocks. No, this isn't duping. Only trees, flowers, and natural stuff is included. Firstly, summon it with its charm by right-clicking it on a flower. The reproduction rate depends on their happiness, which increases with the diversity of blocks surrounding the flower home. One can see their happiness level by interacting with their Willy Sprig with an empty hand. Or even ask them if they would enjoy a block in their home, again by interacting. So that's what social skills are for, eh? Wixies are for automatic crafting. Firstly, get a Wixie by interacting with its charm on a cauldron. Then right-click with the desired item that one wants to craft. The Wixie will automatically extract items from nearby inventories and use them for crafting. It needs source to operate. To stop the crafting process, send out a redstone signal. Another ability of the Wixie is to automatically craft potions. Interact with the desired potion and it will extract needed items from nearby inventories. If another potion is needed for its creation, a nearby potion jar needs to contain it. Water doesn't need to be provided. It will output the potion in an adjacent empty potion jar. Now to some scrolls that act like filters for automations. Item scroll allow is like a wide list. Add via describes table items to it and then assign it to your entity. It will only interact with the items on the list. Clear it with a Dominion staff. The opposite is the item scroll deny. Basically, blacklist. That's it. Lastly, we got Mimic. This one will make entities mimic the inventory and adding the same items to it. For example, to jungle logs. To finish this chapter, one can craft the spell Prism. This will redirect all spells it comes in contact with in a specific direction, which is indicated by the eye. To finish this mod showcase, you are even able to enchant with the enchanting apparatus. Surprising, isn't it? Each enchant has its own recipe, which can be viewed in the documentation. Each enchanting needs source nearby. To be able to apply higher level enchants, one needs the lower level on the tool. A special enchant is added by the mod called Reactive Enchant. Inscribe the spell parchment used in this enchanting with your desired spell. For example, I used Smelt. Then perform the enchanting and your tool will have the reactive enchant assigned. This makes the tool occasionally cast the spell that you assigned it to. Missing items. After 9 pages of script, we arrived at the end of this amazing mod. One is able to craft the Mage Light scones that reflect the light of your own magical spells. I hope you did enjoy this showcase as it took a lot of time to finish, so maybe subscribe to help me out and check out my gaming channel. Stay safe and game. Ciao!